Hello, everyone. My name is Anthony Davis. I'm a psychotherapist and founder of Anthony Davis Therapy. Welcome to Ask the Expert, an award-winning daily live show from 8:30 a.m. to 9 a.m. to help small businesses. If you have any questions, ask them in the comments of the live feed. And if you need any more advice, join the official Intuit QuickBooks SMB community on Facebook. Accountants and business experts are on hand 24/7. During the live session, we will be running a poll, so do engage with it, and at the end, I'll reveal the results. On the 3rd of March, you can attend the Intuit QuickBooks virtual event, QuickBooks Connect. The virtual event brings entrepreneurs and small business owners together and, and accountants and experts to discuss various topics. The virtual event brings entrepreneurs, small businesses owners, and accountants together to grow, learn, and connect with each other. So first, I'll start by introducing myself. I have a small psychotherapy practice in London, and I'm a psychotherapist and clinical social worker. I work with adults between the ages of 18 plus, and I'm registered with the British Association for Counselling and Psychotherapy in Social Work England. I have over 11 years' experience working with individuals, groups, and adults of various ages and diverse backgrounds, both in the United States and United Kingdom. I've helped clients exhibiting a range of different psychological difficulties, such as anxiety, depression, stress and trauma, and relationship difficulties and bereavement. I also specialize in working with the LGBTQ plus community, particularly those that are struggling with their gender or sexual identity. I've also completed a lot of work with the BAM community, particularly those that have experienced racial or ethnic discrimination. My background is primarily in psychotherapy, but I've also studied psychology and social work in the United States. I started working with young adults that had disabilities and chronic illness, and I also worked in hospital settings and vocational training programs in the United States doing individual and group therapy. When I moved to the United Kingdom in 2010, I started working in international social work with the NHS and the local authority, and this provided me a breadth of opportunity to work with statutory services, with adults, mainly adults that have physical and chronic illness, mental health difficulties, and I also work jointly with the NHS. So I have a breadth of experience working within social services from a social work level to an operational lead level. In 2015, I retrained as a psychotherapist and I started working with individuals in psychotherapy agencies. I've also worked in the GP surgery and now I work in private practice. In my private practice, I work primarily using an integrative model, and this incorporates using different therapeutic modalities to work with adults that incorporate cognitive behavioral therapy, person centered therapy, existential therapy, psychodynamic therapy, and also mindfulness. I've also worked within a range of different types of models that support adults that exhibit difficulties that I discussed earlier. In my practice, as we're talking about stress today, I wanted to do an overview of what stress actually looks like. So, what is stress exactly? It usually incorporates a strong physical response from your body. And this response is quite visceral and it's primal. It dates back to when our ancestors had to fight animals and be always on guard for threats. And usually, this stress response triggers what we call a fight, flight, or freeze response. And this is when hormones or chemicals in our body are enacted and it prompts us to respond. And usually, when we're in that type of mode of thinking, it's hard for us to concentrate and also to think clearly. And that can have some pretty significant physical reactions. And this can include gastrointestinal problems, headaches, tension in our bodies, and this can be quite troublesome. And it can also lead to psychological problems such as anxiety and depression. Also, we can have physical illnesses from stress, and this can also impact our sleep. If we're thinking about stress at the moment, it's particularly heightened due to COVID 19. And over the last almost year, and with now in our third lockdown, we've all experienced various types of stress that we have to manage. And this due to primarily a different way of life. We're primarily in isolation and living alone. We're experiencing loneliness due to lack of face to face and contact socialization. We've also experienced loss, possibly due to loved ones that have become ill or died, or loss of trips or plans that have made. And more importantly, we've also experienced stress due to uncertainty around work. And this could be job loss or redundancy or being on furlough. And in my practice, I work primarily with individuals that are experiencing these various types of stressors. And it's individual stress from some of the issues that I talked about before. And I've also worked with individuals that have experienced stress in companies. And this can include having to work from home and having to manage the stress of navigating how to um, work in an environment that is different from the work environment, trying to find that space at home that they can have um, that work-life balance, and also managing working from home, and also to navigate family life and having a routine. I've also worked with companies in my practice as well to support their employees that are having to return back to work and maybe need support with managing social distancing or maintaining social difficult specific social contacts, and also how to navigate PPE and supporting employees with their mental health in the workplace. So at the moment, we are experiencing a lot of stress, and as we're in our third lockdown, it's important to remember how we can manage that stress appropriately to manage our mental health and also our physical well-being, in addition to really important relationships such as family, friends, significant others. So I'll take some questions at the moment, and let's see who we have first. We have Vlad from Facebook Messenger, and his question is, what would you say are the common signs of stress that requires long-term psychotherapy, and how can we combat it earlier? So, some of the common signs of stress, as I explained earlier, are if you're experiencing quite physical discomfort. So, if you're having frequent headaches, if you're experiencing tension in your body, if you're having difficulty sleeping, and most of these physical reactions can build up over a period of time. Sometimes we ignore them, or sometimes we say they might be attributed to something else. But if you're experiencing these signs of stress and they can lead you to feeling low mood or feeling anxiety, that's when I suggest that psychotherapy will be helpful. And usually, psychotherapy in this instance will be supporting you to manage the symptoms of stress. So we could do some mindfulness practice, such as deep breathing. You could, and the therapist could help you with psychoeducation around sleeping habits or developing a routine. And what I like to work with my clients on in my practice is thinking about areas of their lives that they have control. So I call that locus of control. And sometimes stress can develop from feeling uncertainty, and this is based on having future thoughts. So if you're always focused on the future and worried about the future, then you can experience stress. So I work with my clients a lot on what do you have control over in the present, your locus of control. And that's what psychotherapy can also help you with as well. I hope that answer helped you, Vlad. We have another question from Abe from Twitter DM. The question is, the lack of travel to and back from work is sometimes something I miss. It used to be a good break between personal and work life. Are there any tips to replicate this somehow? I want to create clear boundaries for work and personal times. This is definitely something that a lot of people are experiencing, Abe. And sometimes people, when they travel back and forth to work, it also provides that time of preparing for work. So depending on how long your commute is, sometimes people read or they prepare themselves mentally to face the workday. And also, when they're coming back home, they start to kind of come down from work and prepare to go back to their home life. But as some people are working from home, they don't really have that opportunity to prepare for work in the morning and to prepare to go back home after work and to have that deviation between work and home. So, what I suggest is developing a routine if you're working from home that can give you that space that you used to have. So, in the morning, as opposed to getting right before work starts, you could get up a little bit before. You can maybe have breakfast, you can maybe go for a walk, maybe have a chat with someone that you enjoy talking to, just to have that time before work that you usually would have had if you were traveling to work. Starting at a specific time every day is also really important so that it's not conflicted or confusing for you when you're having work every day. Again, going back to the routine. And then also taking breaks during the day is really important, as you would if you were going off to work. So taking lunch breaks, breathing breaks, any kind of break, as long as you're not working straight through the day, it could provide that routine. And then ending work at a specific time. And once you end work, you can leave the space that you're in. I highly suggest, if you're working from home, working in a space that's different from your lounging space so that it won't seem as if you're going from work back to work, back to work. So you could maybe have a space that's different from your living room. And if you are working in your living room, actually section off that space so that you're actually leaving work and going home. And that can set some clear boundaries, as you've asked about, and allow yourself some personal time at the end of work. The next question is Ailey from Twitter DM. Good morning. I'm a mother to a 6-year-old girl. I wanted to ask you, what can I do to support my child's mental health and well-being during lockdown? That's a really good question, Ali. And children are highly affected right now, particularly because of the sense of isolation that they feel having to stay indoors. And during the lockdown, the third lockdown we're in at the moment, it's been particularly hard on children as they're not able to maybe go to school, see their friends, go out and play, do activities that they used to enjoy. So one thing I would suggest is to um, try to have some activities at home that your 6-year-old girl would enjoy, and try to embed that into the daily routine. I would imagine that you're working during the day as well, so maybe during break times, or I don't know if you're homeschooling at the moment in some way, but incorporating some routine that incorporates your work schedule and also your daughter's would be really helpful, and that can really foster a positive mental health sense of mental health for your daughter, and that she feels that there's some sense of normalcy to the day as opposed to her just being at home in isolation. And this routine where it's incorporating her activities of interest and also staying at home can positively impact her well-being during lockdown. The next question is from Roxana from Instagram DM. I come from a band background and find it difficult to educate my parents about this. How do you battle this issue in your work when dealing with less understanding people? This is a very interesting question. And what I've found is that it'd be interesting to understand some of the areas that are troubling for you to educate your parents around when you're thinking about ethnic minority backgrounds. There's cultural nuances, there's racial nuances, there's a plethora of information that sometimes may feel uncomfortable if you're trying to discuss this with non-BAM individuals. So I usually advise my clients to be open and honest with those that they want to discuss these areas around. Being honest with yourself about how you feel about your ethnic and cultural background, and also building that trusted relationship with individuals where you can have those open and honest conversations. So if you're struggling with your parents, focus on that relationship with your parents. Think about, these are my parents, these are people that I trust and I love, and anything that I do bring to them could be really important for them to know about. So I would just develop that relationship of honesty, being true to yourself, and whatever information you share, make sure that is beneficial for you in the relationship with your parents. And that's what I advise my clients if they have difficulty discussing these types of areas with their loved ones or friends or significant others. The next question is from Rachel from Instagram DM. I recently had my first anxiety attack. I went to see a therapist, but don't know how to go about it. I don't have any references from people I know. Oh, Rachel, I'm sorry to hear you had your first panic attack, and I would imagine that, as I was saying before, this time is quite stressful for most individuals to deal with. And I would highly suggest, first, being aware of how you're feeling when you've had this anxiety attack. As I was saying before, with stress, stress is a form of anxiety, and being aware of how your body's reacting, what I call triggers, what's causing this anxiety attack, being aware of that. And if you do want to go see a therapist, which I do suggest, to talk through this anxiety attack, there are multiple therapist directories. You can also speak with your GP as well to discuss your anxiety attack and your physical and mental responses to your anxiety. And your GP can also give you advice and support around the best way of going about seeking a therapist. So I would definitely suggest, firstly, being aware of yourself and how you're feeling, and speaking with your GP or looking online for therapist directories. But speaking to someone is the most important thing. So if not a therapist, you can speak to a trusted friend, family member, or significant other about your experiences, and not feel that you have to deal with it alone. Next question is Lucy from Facebook Messenger. Hi, Anthony. How can we create a safe environment culture in my organization that helps and supports employees with their mental health challenges? I've allowed leave to anyone on grounds of any physical and mental health issues. I want to do more. Well, Lucy, I think you're doing a really good job already, and being empathetic to employees that are experiencing mental health challenges is one of the first steps in any organization. And if you are allowing your employees that space to take leave on the grounds of physical or mental health issues, that's a really good first step. I also suggest for yourself, if you have any areas of concern or areas that you're not quite sure about in relation to mental health, reading up on it, getting advice and support from mental health experts, and also educating others in your organization around mental health and some of the areas of concern that some of your employees are dealing with. In my practice, I work with a lot of organizations around this similar issue, and um, inviting individuals to do trainings around mental health. Communication is really important with mental health. And as we experienced right now with COVID and the lockdown, supporting employees that are maybe experiencing stress in relation to having to work from home or having to work in work environments where there's social distancing. So I think building awareness, having empathy, listening, actively listening to your employees, and just being there for them as you've already started to do is a really important way of supporting your employees. Okay, the next question is Shalkat from Facebook Live. How can you find out, test your fight or flight, and what are ways to improve confidence? Well, how you can find out about fight or flight is usually in the moment. I would suggest not trying to test fight or flight because it's not usually a pleasant experience, to say the least. As I was explaining before around stress, it's usually in response to a threat. So if you are experiencing what I was saying before around triggers that would cause a fight or flight response, being aware of what those triggers are and how to manage those triggers in the moment is really important. There's also freeze as well, which is quite paralyzing, which is something I don't highly suggest that you want to test. But improving your confidence, I would say, is more about management and being aware of how you're reacting in the present. It's difficult to really gauge how we will react if we're feeling under threat due to stress. So I suggest, as opposed to trying to find out or test, I think it's just being as present and as calm as you can in the moment. And if you are experiencing any stress due to a perceived threat, maybe gauging how intense that experience is for you, and how you can, again, using management strategies to support yourself in the present. I highly suggest deep breathing exercises, which can help you to feel present. Maybe doing something that you enjoy in that moment, and further really being able to manage how your body is feeling, because the body is the first thing that responds when we're under threat due to stress. Okay. The next question is Emma from Facebook Live. Any advice on how to manage grief, loss of family members or friends? Well, yeah, I definitely am sorry if you have experienced this, Emma. And my best advice for managing grief is to just be aware of how you're feeling. Sometimes with grief, we sometimes repress our emotions and we don't acknowledge them in the moment. And being aware that you have experienced the loss and allowing yourself to feel that. We are human, so we're going to feel sad. We're going to feel low, and that's okay. And the best way to manage grief is just to acknowledge those emotions in the present. And if you have unfortunately experienced the loss of a family member or friends, acknowledging your emotions, getting that support from people that you trust to navigate the um, the steps of grief and loss. And usually there's 5 stages. So you experience depression, denial. You try to bargain. There's a sense of anger that you feel, and then ultimately acceptance. But that process can be different for many people. So I wouldn't rush it. And your healing can come at your own time. So really be aware of how you're feeling, seeking support, and acknowledging that it's okay if you don't feel okay, if you've lost a loved one. Next question is Cecilia from Instagram DM. What are some beginner techniques for people looking to proactively be mentally healthy? Beginner techniques. I would suggest. I think I've been saying before, just being aware of yourself. Self awareness is so important. I think we lead very busy lives, and with the lockdown, with COVID, with everything else going on, we can sometimes neglect ourselves. So, being self aware, self care, taking care of yourself physically, mentally, and cognitively is really important as a beginning technique, so to say, for managing your mental health. And that's the best advice I can offer is building self awareness, maintaining self care, and being around those that make you happy, doing activities you enjoy, and not focusing so much on the past or the future. Being very present is really important when managing your mental health. Next question is Janice from Instagram DM. Do you know if there are communities online forums where people can seek help from each other to battle loneliness? I feel that I don't have enough people to talk to during lockdown and live alone with my cat. I don't know of any specifically, any online forums, but I would suggest that if you're feeling lonely, then the best advice I would offer is to try to seek out social activities around activities that you enjoy. There are many different social media avenues to seek those out. And if you're living with your cat, do some activities with your cat, games with your cat. Um, you do have that companion with you at the moment. And I think sometimes there's a stigma around I live alone, so I feel lonely. But sometimes being alone can be okay. It's best to be comfortable with yourself and to be able to have fun with being alone and doing activities that you enjoy. And if you are feeling that need to socialize, then there are online forums that you can utilize around your activities of interest where you can seek out individuals. There's multiple avenues of doing online chats and calls and things like that. So I would say do some searching, but I would say it'd also be good to feel that sense of comfort being alone. The next question is Mali from Twitter DM. Hello, I'm easily irritated with the noise around my house from my kids, as it makes it difficult to concentrate on my own business. What would you advise? I would first advise, well, it sounds like there's not much space to actually have a working from home space that's quite noise free. So I would suggest that if you are, well, firstly, if you're on calls or if you're doing work, maybe listening to music, or if you're on a call, putting in earphones so to kind of drown out the noise around you. And maybe if you're actually doing work, possibly giving something to your kids to play with at the time, maybe a toy they enjoy, or they can watch a show. If they want to, they have a backyard, maybe they can go out and play. The weather's not very nice at the moment, but if the weather is nice, maybe they can do that. But I do understand that it is quite tricky having to work from home with kids around, and if you have to homeschool, that makes it doubly difficult. So I would firstly advise, if you can, try to drown out the noise with earphones. Do so listening to music, trying to find a space that's as noise free as possible, and distracting the kids, giving them activities they enjoy, in order to keep the noise down for a bit while you're doing work. Next question is Mohit from Twitter DM. Work from home was okay in the first lockdowns, but now it is too much to handle. I feel like I have no control over my life. I wake up to work, and that's the last thing on my mind before going to bed. My job is important, and I can't afford to go unemployed. What should I do? This is, yeah, I'm sorry you're experiencing this, Mohit. This is definitely a problem that a lot of people are experiencing at the moment, working from home. And I see you mentioned that you have no control over your life, and I would ask you to think about that a bit more. And as I was saying earlier, having a locus of control, finding those things that you do feel you have some sense of control over is really important. And it seems like your routine just consists of going to work, thinking about work, and then going to bed thinking about work. So I would suggest maybe rethinking your routine during the day and leaving those spaces to not think about work, taking those breaks, starting at a specific time, working, taking breaks, and then ending. And then once you end, don't think about work. Close your laptop, put it in a place that's not visible, and shift your focus to your home life and really thinking about either watching a show on Netflix or playing a game, reading a book, taking a nap, anything you can do to close your mind and compartmentalize that you've ended work and you're doing something else that's not work related. But I do understand the difficulty, and the best thing I can say is just having a routine that is able to encompass separating work from your personal life is really important. Next question, and our last question, is Roberta from Instagram story. How have you had to adapt your methods due to this pandemic? Yes, it's definitely been a learning curve. As a therapist, I had to go completely online, and that was due to the safety issues around conducting therapy face to face. So I've had to tell all my clients that we're going to have all our therapy via video chat, and using various mediums was able to still continue therapy with my clients, but um, we've had to take into consideration confidentiality and making sure they had a space to actually conduct therapy, getting additional training to conduct therapy online or via telephone, and also not being able to go to an office, and as many people have described, having to work from home. So I've had to adapt significantly due to the pandemic. And again, thinking about what can I control, what things can I do to make this manageable for me was something I had to really learn and wrap my head around during the pandemic. And the same can be for you, Roberta, if you're having to change any methods due to the pandemic. Just thinking about what can you do to make sure that you're adapting in the present. Okay, so we have our poll results, and we asked you all, do you handle stress well? And the response was that we found 50% of you said yes, that you do handle stress well. So half of you felt that you handle stress well, and half of you said no. And that's interesting. And I would suggest that it's a process. To say that we're optimum at handling stress would not be realistic. And we each handle stress in different ways. So I would suggest that however you handle stress, those 50% that said yes, continue to do so. And the half of you that said no, think about some of the things that we were discussing today. Um, Setting a routine, being aware of your emotions, being present, finding those areas of your life that you control, and seeking out support if you need it. And that can support you in managing your stress a little bit better. So, thank you everyone for tuning in. If you want to get in contact with me, you can send me a DM on my Instagram at adavis.therapy, and my website is adavisTherapy.com. Coming up on Ask the Expert tomorrow is Claire Seal, who is the founder of the Financial Wellbeing Forum and author of 2 books. She works to address the deeper issues of debt and financial difficulty and discusses how mindset, privilege, and circumstance contribute to our financial lives and emotional well-being. Tune in tomorrow to learn more about how to find financial well-being for your life. Don't forget to join the official Intuit QuickBooks SMB group on Facebook and also register for QuickBooks Connect. You can find the link in the comments. I hope you enjoyed today, and thank you so much for sending in your questions this morning, and I hope you have a good day. Thank you so much, everyone.